Now that we know our trig ratios, sine, cosine, and tangent, we can use that in order to find the angle in a triangle. All we have to know are two of the sides. I'm going to begin by showing you an example. This example is not in your notes. Just pay close attention so you get the idea for what's going on, and then we'll actually do some writing in our notes. Suppose we have a right triangle. The length of the sides are 3, 4, and 5. We want to find the measure of this angle, theta. Here's what we do. We look at the sides that we have, and I see here that I have the opposite, which is 4, and the hypotenuse, which is 5. So I can say the sine of theta is the opposite over the hypotenuse, which is 4 over 5. Now I want to find the angle that has a sine equal to 4 over 5. There's only one measure angle. That sine value is going to be 4 over 5. I actually use the calculator. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. And I find out that the measure of the angle is about 53 degrees. Notice the notation I have here, sine with a -1. It's not an exponent. Sine with a -1 really means the inverse of sine, or find the angle whose sine is this value. Let's look through our first example. Before we do that, though, I know you might be thinking, what if I didn't pick the opposite in the hypotenuse, the 4 and the 5? What if I picked the opposite in the adjacent, or the adjacent in the hypotenuse? This is what's really cool. If I pick the sine, I get 53 degrees. If I pick the cosine, 3 over 5, I also get 53 degrees. If I pick tangent, 4 over 3, I also get 53 degrees. And so it didn't really matter which ratio I chose as long as I used the correct sides. Example 3 is where we'll begin in the notes, so please move forward to example 3. We want to find the measure of angle theta. And so we look at the sides that we have. Here we're given the adjacent and the hypotenuse. Which one uses adjacent and hypotenuse? Well, that would be cosine. So the cosine of theta is the adjacent, 14, over the hypotenuse, 32. Now I'm looking for the angle, and so what I put into my calculator is cosine inverse of 14 over 32. How do you put that in? Well, let me show you right now. If you're using the TI-84, you're going to use second cosine. Second cosine, and then put the fraction 14 over 32 in, and it will tell you approximately 64. That's the number of degrees in the measure of the angle. If you're using the Inspire, you hit the trig key. That brings up a little menu like this, and you select cosine inverse, cosine with a little -1. You put the fraction 14 over 32 in, and once again it shows up about 64 degrees. And so the measure of the angle is approximately 64 degrees. Now, if your calculator displays something different, not 64, it's possible you have it set in radian mode, and you need to switch the mode back to degrees. Example 4, we also want to find the measure of the angle. We look at the sides that we have opposite and adjacent. Which trig ratio uses opposite and adjacent? Well, that would be tangent. So the tangent of theta is 26 over 18. We want to find the measure of the angle, so we do tangent inverse of 26 over 18. Please take a moment to find the value that is the measure of the angle. Please pause the video here and come back once you've used your calculator to evaluate this angle. The measure of the angle is approximately 55 degrees. Example 5 is for you to try. Once again, begin by identifying the opposite, the hypotenuse, and the adjacent. Once you've done that, you can write a ratio and then find the measure of the angle. Please pause the video here and come back when you're finished. Let's see how you did. We have our hypotenuse and our opposite. Those are the given numbers, and opposite and hypotenuse is sine. So the sine of angle x is 40 over 42. Because I want to find the angle, I do the inverse. Sine inverse of 40 over 42 gives me approximately 72. So this angle is approximately 72 degrees. So here's what you need to know. When you want to find the measure of an angle, all you need are two sides of the triangle. Use your ratios, sine, cosine, and tangent, in order to write an expression, and then you can use the calculator to find the value of the measure of the angle. That's everything you need to know about finding the measure of an angle using basic trigonometry.